jump into the presentation for today, I just want to make everybody aware that this is the main page for the Digital Services Forum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this in a little while once we get everybody into the meeting. I'll paste this in so that everybody can have it if you don't have it already. The four things that we provide are going to be these Zoom meetings that you're all on today. There's going to be this community, and this community houses, if you go to the blog, that's where I put all of the meetings from the past. So those will all be inside the blog there, along with any content or code that was provided during the meeting. We'll attach all that in there. The other thing is we have a YouTube playlist, and I'll show you what that looks like. We got about 30,000 views on our meetings this year after the meetings happened. So that's a really nice piece. If you miss the meetings, you can always go to the playlist and play that video back. And then we have a shared instance. And I think right now there's maybe about 175 people that are admins on that shared instance. And I know it's been slow in the past, but I did a refresh of the instance not too long ago. So we're on a new one now. And it's a little bit more peppy than the one that we had before for a couple of years. So if you do want to get on the shared instance because you see something you like on one of these calls, and you want to get on there and look at the code or look how we configured something, then you'll be able to get on that instance and use it. So if you do, send me an email. I can get you an admin account on there, and you can be on there just like everybody else, and maybe even demo some of your own things, your own configurations that you want to show from that instance someday. So another tradition we have, if anybody is here for the first time today, if you can just go ahead and post where you're from in the chat, and what your position is at that company where you're from, that'd be great. This way, all our members, while I'm talking, and everybody can welcome you to the group, and then know who you are. It'd be appreciated. Okay, the YouTube is a playlist, right? So the playlist, I'll just keep adding to the same playlist as we go. And you can see these are all of our past meetings. So if I ran some analytics on a couple months ago. We get about 30,000 views over the last year on all of our content that we've been putting up. So if you missed something in the past, like on financials or some of the things we'll be talking about on CSDM, you can go back and look at all those different meetings. All right. So let's get into today. I'm going to talk a little bit about road mapping. And then I'm going to specifically focus on CMDB. And an ideal meeting today would be for you all to change a lot of the ways that you approach your CSDM and CMDB road mapping going forward. So I'm going to give you this deck. I'm going to give you a link to the deck where you can download this right after I'm done. You'll be able to either view it online, or you'll be able to download it and make some edits yourself. So I actually have the PowerPoint version here, and that PowerPoint version will be what you would want to download if you're creating your own roadmap. And I'm going to show you a couple tips and tricks on there on how you can do it. And then the other thing is, if you just need to go through what I'm going through today and show people some features in ServiceNow, you'll be able to use this as a reference for that as well. So the first slide, some of you may have seen already. The first slide in the deck for the roadmap is going to be our main slide for all of our capabilities. So I can't take credit for this. Somebody else does this. What I did is I added a few things to this, because usually it's a good place to start with road mapping on what are we doing today, and then what are we trying to do in the future. So what you can do on this roadmap is I can drill into IT service management, and I could see inside each of these, once I drill down, I could see inside each of these what you have deployed, what you own but you're not using, anything that's currently being implemented, and anything that's proposed that you've looked at. So this way you have an accurate inventory of what you're looking at, what you're using, and what you're not using. Now, at times, you'll have to go down and deep dive into one of these modules. And so if I'm doing something new, I'll have, and you click on the home button and I can go back, but I might have to deep dive into a module that I haven't used before to get some information, more information about that module. This is a little slow today. Here we go. So let's say we're using sourcing and procurement and we don't know what that is. So I can drill on sourcing and procurement, and you can have a conversation that we're not using any of this today. But then you might want to say, okay, what does it give me? What are the things it gives me? So shopping hub, right? I can go down to each of these individual items and get more detail on the actual capabilities within each of the different modules that ServiceNow has. So if you download this, you will have to put it in presentation mode in order to be able to drill back and forth like this. But then you could always go back. If you hit your home button, you can always go back all the way up to that top level and navigate your way back to that first screen. So it's like a website where you're drilling in, depending on who you're talking to, you're going to need additional detail on things. Okay, so the first thing is to figure out what up here, because what we're going to do with our CMDB roadmap is we're going to tie that into the processes that we're supporting, which is a little bit of a shift for some of us. Right? So instead of worrying about all the collections in the CMDB and how to fill up all of our servers in the CMDB, we're going to actually look at what that CMDB data is going to be used for. So it's a good idea up here to, you can take some checkboxes. Let me get out of this presentation mode for a minute. I'll show you how we can color this up when you guys get it. If you want to color it up some more, you'll be able to use this feature on PowerPoint called Formatter. And Formatter will really help us on this exercise a lot. So I know some of you probably are used to this already, but let's say you have some stuff that you're looking at proposing. Right? So what you can do is you can click on proposed and then come up the format painter here and double click. And then that gives you the formatting of this. So what it's going to do is, if I can say I'm going to look at workplace services, I can click on that now, and then that'll change the coloring for me. So that's going to be a useful thing for you going forward, because we're going to use that in the drill downs as well. We're going to use that same legend to make sure that we know what we want to do, what we're proposing, as well as what we're implementing. Okay, so that's how you could take this deck and use it to go ahead and basically inventory what you have and what you don't have today. Now, the next section is the roadmaps. Right? So if you're looking at a roadmap, we want to take the things on the roadmaps, and this is usually what we do as a high-level one. So we want to take these things up here, and usually we put them on our roadmap. Like, when are we doing something else for workplace, or when are we implementing legal service? Because I have those clicked. Right. So once you get past that planning and the discussion about what's underneath here, maybe you've had some demos. You want to make sure that you go ahead and start road mapping them, right? Really look at the horizon. So I provided some roadmaps that we use so that you can use them yourselves. But I want to explain also how we use those roadmaps. So at a very high level, right, we can go into these different ones and just say, hey, we're going to really focus on Q1 on IT asset management, CMDB, and security operations. And then we can slide these other things around. Right, so these on this screen, you're just basically sliding these things around to where you need them. Right, so it's an adoption of mostly the new things that you'll be bringing in. Okay, so here, all you're going to really do on this map, right, is say, when am I? My format painter on there. But all you're really going to say is, when am I starting that, or when am I going to start that new piece? Sometimes it might be that you start back here because I've already done it. So sometimes you might be indicating that on there. Right now, one of the things that I did different here is these are all things that ServiceNow markets, right? Like ITAM is something you'd have to buy. Strategic portfolio management, operational technology. What I did here, and this is going to be a little bit of the change in thinking today, is I put in the I put in CMDB as its own product. So I basically I configured CMDB like it's a module in itself, even though that's not something you're buying directly. Like you're buying things to populate it, you're buying things to maintain it, but you're not buying things. Something you buy gives you the CMDB, right? It's part of platform. And that's going to be one of the main concepts today is the value of the CMDB proliferates across all these areas. So that's what we really want to take advantage of. Now on this roadmap, and somebody probably can't pick this deck up and use it right away because you got to know where to click. Like on that first slide, I knew that I could click on those things and I could drill down into the details, right, of each of these. And then I knew I could drill down once more to get further details. Right, so on the same thing on this one, these I could drill down on. And because I'm running the deck, I know that. And it'll be the same with you when you're using this deck to communicate across your company. You probably can't give it to people and just have them use it without knowing. So if I click on ITAM, it's going to now bring me into a roadmap specifically for what we're doing for IT asset management. So usually we'll do 3-year roadmaps, and then we'll align these. What I'll try to do is I'll align to value that the organization understands, right? So the initiative, a single view of all technology assets. Well, what does that give me? Well, it's going to help me decrease my annual hardware spend is one of the things that one of the companies I work with was looking at. So you want to do what your initiative is and what value outcome are you trying to achieve all the way over to the right. Right? And the same thing goes here because you will be in discussions over like, what is asset management workspace, right? And you might have to go ahead and click and just get that next level of detail without going into a full-blown demonstration yet. So you can click, brings you down to the asset management space. And then you don't want to click it back up here because that'll take you back up to that capability map that we were on. What you want to do is you want to click here and that'll bring you back to asset management. Okay, on the bottom, I have a legend of, what you own today, and then what are future entitlements that are on this roadmap. So it's really clear what we own and what we're getting more mileage out of, because a lot of times, a lot of the work you're doing is just working on something to implement that you already have, right? So you'll make sure that you indicate those as well as what you don't have on the bottom. And then each of these will be able to drill down and drill back. Even if I'm looking at, hey, this is SAM, this is software asset management. So I can go here, and this is a content library that belongs to software asset management. I did the best I could on compliance for 508. So that's why these things all have lines around them. A couple of times we had colorblind people, and just colors alone don't work on these. So when you're doing these roadmaps in the deck, you have to make sure that you can, drill into those items and then see both the shape and the colors on them as well. All right, so everything on the roadmap should drill down when you get there. All right, any questions so far? All right, because we're going to go right into CMDB next.
So just really quick, I was trying to look on the forum and stuff. Where is this deck located again?
I'm going to put that in now in chat.
Thanks.
And I'm going to put in a couple links for you. So the first link I'm going to put in is going to be the forum page. And this video will be posted on that forum page afterwards, along with the content. So if you want to rewatch it and how some of those things were used, you can go to that forum page and go to the blog. And then the other one I'll post is, this is a link to this deck that I'm showing you today. I'll jump back to that. But this is a link to that deck that I'm showing now. So what you could do is you can download this deck, or you can just leave it where it is. Like if you're not going to color it up like I'm doing, you can go ahead and play this right online like I'm doing now. And I can go ahead and go to my, whatever I want to, my service catalog, and go back home. So when you download it, it's going to be about 300 megs. It's a really big deck because of all the drill downs. So if you want to view it in place, you can do that as well. You weren't able to do that on prior roadmaps But you can do that now because we just got a new product in ServiceNow that lets you actually do interactive decks online. So that link I just gave you there should, I see some thumbs up, so I guess people are getting there today. All right, now any other questions before I go? I'm talking a lot here. All right, so if I go back on these detailed roadmaps, there's a lot of drill downs, right? So I try to make them as obvious as I can. So return to our big roadmap, and that's the light up here. I created a couple other ones just so you can go down and drill like on like OT. You know, some of these just aren't all built out, but they're more just templates so that if you're doing something on OT, you can go down and get started. But some of these you might have to define your own templates. I wasn't able to do them like a template for every roadmap. The one I spent some time on and developed a lot of new drill down slides was this one. And this is the one I really want to focus most of our time on today, and definitely open up for conversations along the way. So if I click on configuration management, it's going to bring me to a similar roadmap that you've seen with all the other ones. Like I'm trying to keep consistency here so that people get used to seeing these same roadmaps, same discussions, same ability to drill down to the individual areas. So when I drill down to CMDB, I got a lot of color on here, first of all. But there's the 12 things in CMDB that we really want to focus on are up top here, right? So these 12 things, this is where we get value out of the CMDB. What I mean by that is we spend a lot of times on this, right? Let's populate the data in the CMDB. So all the different ways we can do that. I think I got to clean that one up. Let's look at how we normalize data in the CMDB, the service graph connectors. So you can have conversations on these things, what service mapping is, all the different ways that I can map my services. So there's that discussion on the bottom lane that needs to happen. And what I've been seeing a lot of, and our people are stuck down here. They're so stuck maintaining the health of the CMDB that they forget what they're doing the CMDB for in the first place. So CSDM is a big part of that too, right? Like with CSDM, they'll spend a lot of time just trying to configure everything in CSDM instead of trying to figure out, how do I use this data? Like, what am I building it all for? So each of these areas are going to be really good discussions on how to do that. So what we're doing is we're looking at a mesh between the people that own these processes and the people that are defining the CMDB data. And that overlap of people, the coming together of people in those conversations are where we're breaking down a lot. So a lot of times when I go in, I'll find out like the CMDB person or the incident person doesn't really know what's going on with the CMDB because they're not involved in the configuration of it. So if you click on each of these, there's a good discussion on a slide, but there's also going to be a drill down on that conversation. So this could be the CMDB person going to the incident person and saying, hey, this is what I want for incident management. Or it could be the incident management person coming to the CMDB person saying, let's have this conversation. So if you look at the incident, and we're focused on certain parts of the CSDM, right? So if you're a CMDB person, you're really deep in CSDM, you don't want to give a dissertation on what the common service data model is to the incident management person. Because the incident management person, what they really understand is they understand that the stuff that I'm putting in the tickets, right, are my business services and my service offerings. This is the stuff that I get tier 1 help desk calls for. Right. So this should be all the stuff that we're offering to either employees or customers, all the self-consume stuff. Okay, so these things are what we're putting in the ticket down here. So this is the standard incident ticket. We're able to put that data in. I don't know if I can zoom at the same time. There we go. Right, so I can go here, right, and then I can I can do one or the other, not both. Sorry about that. So I can go here and fill those things in. And that's really what the incident person needs to fill in these ones and twos. Now, the idea here is that as you're filling these things in, there might be, because it's a certain service offering, it might be a different support team. Right. So usually what you're going to have here is you're going to have level 1 support, right, can identify the business service offering, because that's what people are actually consuming. Level 2 people are usually going to be the application service teams, right? And then your level 3 people are all the people that take care of the technical services, my networking, all my other pieces. So if you're
John,
having
I have a question.
Sure.
So it's about the 1, 2, 3, John. The assumption there is the service desk agents are very familiar with the application portfolio, or the business portfolio, and they understand the business service that relegates the offering that gets you to the CI. But we addressed it the exact opposite way, because we know the application service would be the CI because of the digital portfolio management, and then all of the things in APM will depend on that CI, right? As far as, how many incidents, for each one of the applications. So the application service in number 3 gets selected. And since we know its relationship that the business app consumes that application service, and we know that the service offering depends on that application service, then 2 and 1 could basically be automatically populated, right? Depending on how you do it. But that's how we did it. So it's curious you're doing 1, 2, 3, but we're doing it 1, 2, 3 the other direction, because we don't have to populate the service offering or the business service, because we know those connections from the app service. We just have the application team, the help desk agents populate that application service CI. It's very familiar. The name is similar to the service offering name, and it's also similar to the business app name.
And we see that a
We
lot.
have a unique ID that ties a custom unique ID that ties all 3 together, right? So we know that if application service prod, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 6, that's going to be associated with the service offering 1, 2, 3, 6, as well as the not necessarily the business service, but the business application would have that unique identifier 1, 2, 3, 6. So is everybody following the 1, 2, 3 from the top down, and what's generally the consensus out there?
A lot of times what we see here is this business service offering becomes the same name as the app when they're one-to-one. But a lot of times if it's one-to-many, right, it's one service offering that needs 4 different apps, then you can't really do that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's the same thing. Most of the time it's 1-to-1, but sometimes it can't be.
Yeah. Like we were just out at a healthcare organization in Arizona, and we thought that was 1-to-1 because there was the name of an app, and people called in about the app. So we said, all right, let's put that in as the service offering, because that's what they're calling it, right? If that's what the consumers are calling it, then it's the same name. And then what happened was they're like, wait a minute, there's 3 teams I could forward it to. There's not 1. So we had to end up with 3 application services instead of 1. So then we said, okay, here, how do we teach these people to get it into the right bucket, right? The right application service.
And looking at the
John,
chat, it seems there's some consensus out there too.
John, I have a comment that may kind of help with this, if you don't mind.
No, that's great. I want this to be interactive, so we got plenty of time.
So I was taking, as you were putting the numbers down, 1, 2, 3, putting on like a help desk, an incident management persona hat on. A lot of times the client calling in may be, like you said, my whatever product isn't available, service or something. They're not going to get specific. So what the information that's coming in may start off more general to the overall service. Right. You then can drill down into what is unique about this subscribed client to that service, and you get the offering for your individual contractual terms and commitments. And then you could further drill down into it. Which specific CI is this related to?
Yep, exactly. And that's the kind of the 1, 2, 3 here that you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it matters where you're coming from an organization. So, where we are actually at the point right now where for years, we choose the business application as the CI of an incident, which the CSDM does not expect that because it's a non-operational CI. Right. So we are in the middle of then shifting to the CSDM model operationally, and the jump is easier for the frontline businesses to say, well, we've always been doing business application. We're going to shift to application service. So we're going to take all of our business applications, make them application services, and then they're there. Right. And we already have a one-to-many relationship. So we can't go, we can't do that where it auto-populates yet. Right. So maybe that's something that people should consider, that maybe they go to one initially and then start building that out. But that might break your automation, because in a ticket, you can only choose from a core incident, you can only choose one offering and one business service. But then
we lost Mike.
If he doesn't come back, John, can I jump in? Ian Clayton here.
Yeah, sure.
in the additional
Oh,
table,
Mike,
we're going to leverage that piece right there. So
Mike, we lost you for a minute. We lost you for about 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. So I don't know where I left off, but so I think.
Oh, we lost him again.
Solar flare.
Go ahead, Ian.
Well, just to say that I come at this from a completely different angle, so I'm biased.
I think the maturity of going 1, 2 from a business application focused. So I might be breaking up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Mike. So we're going to jump over to Ian.
Let's see if I can pile on. I come at it from a completely different angle. I used to build these data centers for a little chap called Ross Perot, and everything was through an outsourcing lens. And really, we had to work out what's more important to an end user, paying an invoice or creating an invoice, trying to work out like the business impact analysis type thinking. And they would say, well, obviously creating an invoice, I want everything but. And our support systems were built that way to try and capture some of the highlights, the major activities that people are doing. And we could associate that with a location to help us. And then eventually we would associate that with an offering, how that's offered to them in what package. We don't have any of that activity unless I've missed it inside the platform, that activity level. The nearest we get is process. It's got business on the front. And what I've said to Mark and the others on the CSDM side is, in the future, can you drop the business off the process and give me a type? Then I can use that. Is there any thought of linking this, not forcing me to buy the business continuity management module, but at least to align it with that, so that when you talk to the business and you're saying, look how many of these transactions or activities we've helped you perform. And yes, we're having difficulties helping you pay an invoice. And yes, I can line my knowledge up and my support team better. Is there any thought in that direction? Because that gets traction with the business. When we're talking to them, I can't expect an end user to say, oh yeah, let me tell you what offering I'm using. Think about,
I'm not following, paying an invoice should be enough, right? If that's what they're calling in, they're having problems with.
Right. But then the agent has to do the mental gymnastics to associate the paying an invoice with a particular offering or a particular application. Yeah. So is there any thought in the future to help us do that wiring? I don't have to have, we used to use the ERP systems to pick up all of those activities, the major functionality that any of the modules would support. So that will be in a finance app. And there's a bunch of other things that could go with pay an invoice and create an invoice. So that's what I'm missing. Yeah. Okay. That's the level down, because that's typically what I'm hearing when I complain about my internet being down. I typically call someone and say, look, I'm trying to watch the game and I can't watch the game. You guys suck. What's wrong? Now they might say, oh, well, what offering are you using? I have no idea.
Right.
But I can tell you what I'm trying to do and I can't do.
The language doesn't matter. Like, those things that they're telling you they can't do should be in the offerings table. Well, I don't understand why you couldn't put those in there as part of.
You mean like the in scope, out of scope type stuff, or?
Yeah, like what you're offering. The problem they have, that might be in this description, the in scope, out of scope, but this is supposed to be the language that they're calling in about, right? These are the contractual agreements you have to do to support certain things, for those consumers.
I'll hand back to you, John. I'll fire those questions off to you behind the scenes then, yeah, because I think that's where we're going to be going. And
Okay. And this,
I'm working on stuff right now where we got this co-join between CSM product models and sold products and accounts, and then CSDM, and that is becoming to be a big interest for a lot of our clients. Yeah.
And I'll show you, like, these are the exact conversations that we want to start having about the CMDB. Like, how much of this data, I see so many times everybody's worried about complete models. And this conversation we're having today, like the fact that you can't use it for incident management because we don't have the right language in there, like that's what you need to, that's the conversation between the help desk manager and the people that are working on the CMDB, right? Or maybe a liaison between the two, right? Maybe a product manager that manages the CMDB data. So these conversations are ones that we're missing on when, and a lot of times why the project's getting stopped, because we can't figure this stuff out. We can't figure out how to help those tier 1s get to tier 2s and the tier 2s get to tier 3s, which is really the purpose of the data, right? So this, I think some of these guides that we have in here can help, but on the roadmap, if you have those discussions and we can start looking for use cases across a broader spectrum, right? So I can look for what I'm doing for incident management, but I might be having a conversation with the change manager, which is a different conversation, right? Because the change manager is coming at it backwards. So how do I have that conversation and say, what am I actually, hey, I'm going to infect my, I can't pay an invoice now, or I'm paying an invoice may be affected because I am altering these technical services or doing changes on these technical services, right? So you're kind of bubbling up from the technical components that you're changing to understand the impact on these offerings, on what the business is consuming.
So John, yeah, so backwards, I guess you mean the change manager is adding the configuration item to the change. The configuration item for us, and I think that was the guidance from ServiceNow, should be the application service. Could be the offering, I suppose, but if it's the application service, and then you select refresh related CI services, you would essentially get all other services, that application services that may be related to those application services, and then of course all its offerings, and then obviously you have the connection back to the business apps.
Yeah, so anything you're changing down here, usually that's where your change is taking place, will bubble up here, and anything connected here will bubble up here to show the impact on the business, right? So that's what those depend on relationships do, is let you walk upstream, or what we can do here is with the business offering, we can work downstream.
Exactly. Either way, plus the connection to the business app, so you know that business app was impacted.
So if you're only going to do a little bit of configuration, right, and not aim for 100% CMDB completeness, which is, that's a tough goal to aim for, then picking out the use cases here that we can help with right away and get that embedded in the change process so that we can have kind of a minimal viable product or a minimal viable set of data that we can start working with. Because a lot of times people are just waiting to get all their servers in and waiting to get everything there. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. But there should be conversations you can have about what are those really problematic applications or troubleshooting paths, right? Where are all my reroutes happening, or am I getting a lot of changes that are impacting my business that people are getting frustrated with? Like those conversations, you can look to configure the data to facilitate those things, right? To help the change process.
Yeah, right. And now with DPM, it all rolls up, so you can easily see it at those levels.
Yeah, and then DPM is another conversation, right? So the DPM use case is that I want reporting data. And security incidents, it's another conversation, right? What am I doing with security incidents? Well, I'm looking for security people would love to have the value to bubble up, right? Because they have a configuration item that's impacted by a security incident, and they need to be able to see what services are being impacted, right? So I could tell the difference. So with a security person having these conversations and making them understand the data you're building and just their part of the CMDB that they need to understand. So they're interested in going upstream, right? So you need to have that connection from the infrastructure items up to the app services, maybe out to the business services, but at least up to the app services. Right. So these are the right conversations to have, in my opinion, about the CMDB, these kind of 12 areas here where we get all the value from. A lot of people, like I said, they spend a lot of time up here in app portfolio when that use case has nothing to do, unless you're moving apps, business services to app services, like I think Mike said earlier. You really shouldn't be up here at all with your incident manager. Right? This stuff, when you start getting up into application portfolio management, right, they're the people that are going to care about this data. So you really need to break those conversations up when you're having them, and then not do the work until you have somebody signed up to catch it, right? Somebody signed up is going to be managing the application lifecycle. They're going to be looking at that portfolio or doing the planning against it, right? Or even like, I know Lou, you guys are now getting the technology portfolio, which is everything from here bubbling all the way up to here, which is really nice.
Well, yeah, we automated it all. So when a new business application gets created, it automatically creates a dev, test, and prod application service. Plus, it automatically creates an offering. Plus, that off the application service, the offering, all the business app has to have an application model associated. You do an agile and things like that. So it's all cascading and automatically created. Now, whether servers go into that application service, right? Sometimes you won't have any, you'll have it on servers on the prod, but you won't have it on test or dev. It doesn't matter, because the construct is, for us at least, it's dev, test, and prod. Now, other companies could have northwest, east, and south, do whatever you need to do.
So some of these, like application portfolio management, we have the doc, the reference doc, that tells you how to use CSDM for it. So this is a snippet out of that doc, and these are the value that it provides. Some of them don't have that. Like for security incidents, we don't have a CSM guide yet. So what I did for security incidents and vulnerabilities, for example, is I showed the connection of like where you're getting the value from the CMDB, but all these guides aren't there all the time. So the one that I think that was Ian before mentioned, if you come in here for business continuity management, we have a business continuity management map that shows, how to get back to it, but we don't have an IRM one. But you can kind of derive the IRM conversation from the business continuity management, because that really is all about managing risk. So sometimes you might have to, like if you are using these as guides, to have conversations with the BCM process owner, the IRM process owner, or product owner, you can you can use proxies for that, right? To have to hold those conversations.
Are these guides out in Now Create?
They're in docs.
They're just in docs. Okay.
Yeah. So when there is a guide available, I link them on the bottom. So if you do need more than just the picture I'm showing you, you can click out here and get to those.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. And Lada, are you on today? I know Lada is from our value team.
I am on.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
So this is Lada sent me an email a couple of weeks ago about what the business value of the CMDB, because we're trying to paint that picture. So this, Lada, I thought this was going down that direction, and I don't know if you're cringing at my numbers I put out here, but this is we have a special team to derive those. So.
Yeah, no, I was like this. I think this conversation is really helpful. We're working with a customer right now who is struggling with kind of the quality of the CMDB and the efforts required to be able to bring it up to the right level. So we're working with them kind of to identify the value that can be derived. And John, this conversation is really helpful. I think it's a great way of articulating the impact, the value that a good CSDM, a good CMDB can make.
I think we can work together maybe on some of these numbers. I just dropped stuff in there for now that I thought made sense, but we could probably get to like industry standards over here,
Mhm.
sort of like you've done with some of those, so we can at least give some rough numbers in there. And that, I think that would be great, because I think this needs to be treated more like a product, just like you're rolling out everything else. And the problem with the CMDB person is they could never be successful because they're getting dragged across all 12 of these people. And there might even be 2 or 3 more that I'm not even thinking about yet, right? That, like, SPM's not in here. So these people are trying to satisfy, like, everybody is coming at them and thinking the CMDB is horrible because you can't do all 12 of these things coming out of the gate. And it's like, well, we didn't populate business apps yet. We can't really do application rationalization, right? So then the CMDB is horrible. Right? So to be able to hold these individual conversations and maybe not some, right? If you don't have somebody signed up for certain things, you can't really do it. Like, if you don't have a partner in security managed, you can't really do much of this. Right? So you have to make sure you have the people on board on both sides to have the conversation, and then determine what the right data is to populate first, or where the win is, where I can hit this guy, and this guy at the same time, right? Those, like, maybe a matrix that we work out to say, this is the data I'm going to use first. So a lot of people go after service mapping, because service mapping obviously gives you a lot of these, right? A lot of wins.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So that's, so I think that's where I see it breaking down a lot. A lot of times I come into the organization and I'm having these conversations with the process owners for the same time, for the first time. And I know it's not like this in all your organizations, so I don't want to, generalize, but that's
It is
where
like that, mine.
It is, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, you're hitting the nail on the head. And if you get into any conversations on value points, I wouldn't mind being invited into those. Because I'm at the stage right now, we're trying to tell them the value of the CMDB, build process around it, because you have to maximize that value. But it's still a challenge getting buy-in to the processes and things, and getting people to fully even buy into the product. We're still fighting that battle.
Yeah.
So
If you build it, they will come.
I'm trying to take that approach, but it's not that easy, because there's money involved in building it. I have to go fight for the money too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a CMDB product owner, or is that like?
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
do. That's my boss, and she fights this battle. She's as aware of everything I just said as I am, and fights this battle every day.
Okay.
I am for
It's,
our company.
It's not so much the CMDB product owner that's important. What's important is every product in your system has a product owner. Then you're spread loading the responsibility, because everybody has a stake in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting here is when you, if you go back to that conversation we had a few weeks ago, I don't know if everybody remembers when Charles was on, and he talked about hops from cash, hops from money, right? So if you go into like a product that you're selling, you're one hop from cash, right? So this is what you're selling. These are products you're selling directly to the customer. So the customer's here and they're buying these products that you're making, right? And then if you look at our products, we're probably anywhere between 3 and 5 hops from cash, because what we're doing is we're supporting these processes and the employee processes. And if you look at CMDB, it's probably like, 5 or 6 hops from cash, right? Because CMDB is supporting all the processes that support the processes, right? To get to support the services that get delivered. Right. So that's why it's sometimes there's a lot of reasons why it's hard to make the business case. And if we start to boil down those reasons, it may be a lot easier to make the case. So the case I see most why CMDB gets blown up is because people are trying to get to 100% or 80% before they give any value up here. There's no incremental value gained by people that are running these things prior to the completeness. And that's a really tough game, right? To get all your data perfect down here before you give anybody any value. Because there's always like those little gotchas down here, right? With the discovery probes. and new data coming in, and the dynamic cloud environments that are, spitting stuff up and ripping stuff down. So you're constantly struggling down here, but there should be some way that you can get like those hard ones for the incident teams, or the ones that are really impactful for the change teams. So I think these need to happen, in concert with these. And a lot of these people just have no clue what the CMDB can help them with in their processes.
That is true.
Yeah, John, this is an interesting conversation, and asking about the product owners. I've been aside from the analyst and the advisor and all that, and just basically took over ownership because of all the responsibilities. But in companies like ours that, we currently have, what do we have, 6,000 business applications and almost 30,000 business services and 65, almost 66 million CIs. We've been a customer since 15 and late 14. So we've been through a lot of the evolution, definitely before CSDM. Some of the prior conversations, like you're saying, and understanding what's the basics that you need to have in there just to be able to support ITSM. Get your services, get your marketed stuff, what your clients would call it, what your salespeople and different teams, what they're selling and marketing. Get that defined and get it related to, some offerings if possible, but even just services and CIs, and get that lined out there. Your service mapping, we've been through different efforts with that. If you don't get those services defined well, your service mapping will fail.
That is true.
You're trying to map stuff that isn't there, or maybe it's a combination of services. It could be whole platforms worth of stuff, and you're out there trying to map it, and you're hitting boundary after boundary, and it's just impossible. So if you can figure out your services, it's probably one of the least focused areas, because even if you start getting strategic and doing APM, you got to get your capabilities and try to get those mapped to those services, whether it's something that's code-based, whether it's you're sending a person out to go do something, or somebody's just sending a report or transmission or something. Like, you're tying it all together to what is it that you actually sell.
Yeah, we're
sell and
focused
consume client outside in kind of stuff. Sorry.
No, I thought you were done. We're focused right now, and we're maybe a little less mature than some of you guys are pretty big, on just getting our application services defined, mapped, and getting them up to a business application. And, on the CSDM, on the tab, that's basically the crawl face, the way it's defined right there in the tool.
A lot of people don't realize too that you don't have to have all your app services mapped. Like, a lot of times you're getting a win just by helping that level 1 get to level 2. Like in the case where Lou says a lot of them they're all one-to-one because they understand the app first. But a lot of times if they're calling in like about invoicing might have 3 or 4 different apps in there. Or like I was talking to somebody the other day, they had the web, the front end was a different application than what they were using on the back end database, right? Like, it was an application that connected to another data source. So there's different teams. So just helping route those tickets with the service owners. And sometimes this is more of a problem than this, and everybody assumes this is the big problem all the time. But a lot of times it isn't. A lot of times if you can get to that app team, they're like, I know my servers. I don't need you to tell me which server it's on, right? I know the one that's going to be, because there's 3 servers under my app, right? And I spend all this time waiting for it to be service mapped. Sometimes you just need to get the app service definition without any mapping. There's value there, and sometimes they don't get that. They think there's no value in defining the app services. But to your point earlier, define the services first, and then,
Yeah, John, I'm gonna try again. Just cut me off if I start breaking out again. But to me, that's the key, is establishing that relationship. If people know the business applications that they have out there, and if you can communicate that basic relationship from business app to app service to service offering, and then a business service, that right there is a key. Even without the mapping to the infrastructure, I think we're so focused in the orange because typically we're a technically oriented people that are trying to drive this. But if we shift our focus to the customer, to what is being consumed there, we can define a simplified approach based on adhering to the CSDM guidelines of relationships to that very specific path. Business, you can strip everything else out and you go business app, app service, service offering, and obviously you have to have a business service because you can't have a service offering without a business service. You get those 4 components in place and you then operationalize incidents to that. You can already utilize, then you have an opportunity to already utilize built-in automation when you get to a one-to-many relationship with impacted services.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you're talking about the implementation of CSDM, and we have a lot of conversations about APM and the managed technical services and sell and consume. And the same thing happens in our environment, which we've been running for 5 years or more, is that there's a lot of focus on these upper sections. But what's even missing from this chart here is the foundation domain. And what has happened in our environment is that it's been pretty much ignored. And then as we try to implement the newer pieces, for example, they were trying to do some SDLC, or they're trying to do contract management, and all of a sudden they realize, hey, the business table makes no sense, or locations are misdefined, and you can't leverage those upper ones. But that's the upper levels and domains is where all the attention is.
Well, thanks so much for bringing that up, because that's another thing I'm seeing here. Like, if the people that are taking these bite-sized chunks, you basically develop a team to go after that foundations group. Like, if the incident problem and the change person and you got your business continuity person all rallying together, like we have poor foundational data, therefore, we can't support our CMDB. Those are really effective techniques, right, to driving the project forward. Is it's not just you yelling that I need it for CMDB, but it's them also yelling with you that I need it for my process.
And then when you're looking at the foundation domain, one of the things we've kind of been trying to work on is you have a lot of data stewardship down there, and you use the term data stewards across the board. And we've kind of come upon one definition, but I haven't found ServiceNow where they're saying, here's what we mean by data steward. And we've separated it from data owner. So the data steward we've assigned to be governance and standards and facilitator for those automations and data entry that's happening, to make sure that the automations, discovery, whatnot, are doing proper normalization, that the data is consistent with CSDM standards that they've set forth. Whereas a data owner actually owns the entries.
Yeah.
So there might be a particular group that is responsible, say facilities, for your locations related to facility structures, but human resources wants to enter locations for human employees that are strewn about the country.
Right.
And so you have to have a central facilitator, which we call the data steward. And then a data owner owns the actual entries. I was just wondering if that's consistent with what ServiceNow had in mind, or if there were another definition or another way to approach it.
I have a lot of this stuff, in my opinion, should not be stored in ServiceNow. Like, it should be gotten from somewhere else. In an ideal situation, these would come from like AD groups, a lot of the foundation data. But I don't know if other people think that way, or they think, no, we're never going to get it right there. It has to be done in ServiceNow.
Well, I think the data has to be represented there. For example, we have an HR system that downloads locations for employees, because we will send assets out to their home. And then we're trying to track where the asset is, which is hardware asset management in ServiceNow. And so while the data is coming from a source of truth in another location, it must exist and be represented appropriately in the foundation tables for that to happen.
Yep, you must have that map there. Yeah.
Yeah, that just leads to the complexity of a data steward, who's not responsible for the human resources system, but has to be able to communicate and facilitate and express the standards for the data coming in.
That foundation data, that might be worth a whole meeting.
Yeah,
Like-
I would dig it, because every time you talk about CSDM implementation, they're talking about the upper levels, and it's like, wait a minute. Even before crawl, you're supposed to do the foundation first.
And usually when we get to the EA level, I was talking to an EA when I was out in Arizona with a customer, and she was saying the same thing. She was saying that, you know, we don't have good foundation data, which makes us struggle with a lot of this. And it's like, well, that's a good problem to go after. Usually when it gets up to the, you know, those levels, they're hearing about it from a lot of people when it bubbles up. I want to talk about we got, it's 9:27 and somebody mentioned CSM before. So I wanted to make sure that I at least brought it up on here and let you know that I do have CSM, customer service. And this is a little bit of a different beast, right? Because how does the CSDM interact with the objects that customer service brings on specifically? So this is a little bit of a different conversation. And like I said, if I think these guides help you have that conversation a little bit to make them understand enough of it where you don't get too far into where they don't care, right? They just want to deliver their products and services. So you have customer facing product managers out here. They want to know the minimum here, but you have to help them understand the value. Like, we're going to be able to fix your stuff faster. We're going to be able to tell you when the changes we're making could affect your like those conversations, I think, are really nice to have, you know, with the CSM product managers. Sometimes you're selling it, right? And you have to say that we have to be able to support all your different customers that are buying those products. So I didn't want to go too deep on it, but I did want to make mention that, you know, the same thing here on the roadmap. If you're putting on, I'm going to work with CSM because these are products we're selling, you know, you can drill down on that one as well. So we are at the end of our time. Thanks so much for the interaction. I hate those conversations where I talk the whole hour. It seems like a waste to me. So I appreciate everybody that jumped in. Hopefully you get use out of this. Any comments, you can either send them to me if you just click next to the doc when you download it. The link is, I'll put the link in there again, but if you click on that, that link, you can put comments. My email address is right in there too. So you just send me a note and we'll iterate on this and make it better for everybody.
I just want to add, I actually found this, you're worried about how it went. I found this to be one of the most useful DSFs I've ever attended. This was really
great.
good. And it speaks, it was less technical, but it speaks more to the battles that we're dealing with, you know, as we're trying to get your tool adopted by an organization, frankly.
Yeah, here.
Thank
You
you.
know, the intricacies of the model is one thing, but raising the awareness of how, you know, what it's going to take to get something like this built out, the transformation involved, that's a hard road.
Yes, and I would love to see more of these be focused on that. I know some of the ones you get that go into the deep technical stuff have value too to people that are at that stage. But there are, I think, a lot of us at the stage where we've got the tool in house. We are trying to make sure people still want to continue to pay for it next year and the year after that, and we need them to see the value in it.
Yeah.
And understand why they need to, and why they need to provide money and resources for us to, you know, like you said, if we build it, they will come. But we need to first be provided with the money and resources to build it, and that's a battle right there.
Yeah.
You know,
and you're a product manager when you own the CMDB or the CSDM, so you need to be out there selling it too, right? Telling people that this is what I can give you, right? But
there have been jokes about me sounding like a used car salesman on calls because I'll just interject value. I'll go, see right there, that's a place where ServiceNow is helping you. You know, and I do that all the time, but it doesn't create as much traction as we need. So yeah, anything along this line, really, about how to adopt the tool is
awesome.
Huge for us. I would encourage more sessions like this.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll get this up on YouTube and we'll get it on the, I'll put it in the community so you have it with the content together. Thanks for attending. We'll see you in a couple weeks.